Our headlines today: the rising number of deaths in Ukraine. The UN says at least 847 civilians have been killed so far. The true figure is likely to be much higher.
Amid claims from Mariupol that Russian forces have moved thousands of residents to Russia, Ukraine's President Zelensky condemns the destruction of the city.
To do this to a peaceful city that the occupiers did to it is a terror that will be remembered for centuries to come.
The situation is creating a child refugee almost every second. We report from the increasingly busy border with Romania.
Our small village in Oxfordshire has come together to offer homes for up to 60 people fleeing the war. Let's have a little look at what the papers are saying this morning. This is the image on the front of the Sunday Telegraph. This is a Ukrainian soldier being rescued alive from the debris of a military school hit by Russian rockets yesterday.
Taking a look at the Observer, it reports that Boris Johnson has angered political leaders in Europe and at home after comparing the Ukrainian resistance to the Russian invasion with the UK's decision to leave the European Union. He was at the Conservative Party Spring Conference in Blackpool yesterday. The Prime Minister said that the world faced a moment of choice between freedom and oppression before making his comments about Brexit.
Sunday Express, meanwhile, focuses on claims Moscow has launched a hypersonic missile which is capable of carrying nuclear warheads at Ukraine for the first time. The Kremlin said the missile destroyed a weapons storage site in the west of the country on Friday. Time to bring you up to date with the very latest from Ukraine. John is with us this morning and some grim developments in the last couple of hours. John.
Yeah, quite a lot of news lines just coming through in the last hour or so, and as you suggest, none of them particularly good news. Let's start by having a look at the big picture. Those areas in red under Russian control, not really been advancing too much in the last few days, as we were hearing earlier from our correspondents. In the south, they've been making a bit of progress. The UK Defence Ministry says Russia has failed to gain control of the air and is now largely relying on what it calls standoff weapons. In other words, launched from Russian airspace. Yesterday, the UN Human Rights Office announced that at least 847 civilians have been confirmed to have been killed and nearly 1,400 wounded, although those figures are likely to be much higher. One of the places which continues to be hit hard by Russian forces is Mariupol in the south on the coast there. We're getting reports this morning from the city council which say an art school building has been bombed where 400 people were taking shelter yesterday, with women, children and the elderly thought to be trapped under the rubble. There's no information on casualties yet, and the BBC has not been able to immediately verify that story. The city's mayor, Vadim Bochenko, says thousands of residents have been forcibly deported to Russia, a claim the BBC also can't independently stand up. He says some were redirected to remote cities in Russia, while the fate of others remains unknown. This now is the latest satellite image of that theatre that was bombed in the city on Wednesday. 4 days on, the mayor says intense street battles nearby are hampering efforts to rescue hundreds of people still believed to be trapped in the theatre's basement. And in his nightly address, President Zelensky again condemned Russia's blockade of Mariupol.
Блокадний Маріуполь увійде в історію відповідальності за воєнні злочини.
The blockade of Mariupol will go down in history of responsibility for war crimes. To do this to a peaceful city that the occupiers did to it is a terror that will be remembered for centuries to come. And the more Ukrainians tell the world about it, the more support we find. The more Russia uses terror against Ukraine, the worse the consequences will be for it.
Now, these drone images that came in yesterday, but are probably worth showing again because they really capture the extent of the devastation in that city. Once a bustling town, now as many as 300,000 civilians are still trapped there. And those who have been able to get out through humanitarian corridors have spoken of days of terror in the city.
I could never imagine that a bomb would hit a house next to mine, that my district would be literally wiped out. The outskirts of the city were simply destroyed, and then I realised there were no safe places in the city anymore.
And that's increasingly the case in cities across southeastern Ukraine. In Mykolaiv, where airstrikes took place yesterday, it's feared that up to 200 soldiers could have been killed after 3 missiles hit a barracks where they were sleeping. As you can see here, remarkably, one man was saved from the rubble, but with temperatures down as low as -6, the chance of finding more survivors is shrinking by the hour. Around 10 million Ukrainians have now been forced to leave their homes. Officials say more than 6,500 people were evacuated from cities through humanitarian corridors yesterday, so some getting out. Among them, some of the very most vulnerable, 71 babies and small children from an orphanage in the northeastern town of Sumy. They'd been sheltering in a bunker under Russian bombardment for several weeks, but have now at least been moved to somewhere at least relatively safe. And that's where we are 3.5 weeks since this invasion was launched.
A little light to end on with those children in safety now. Thank you, John.